be just there we are.
Yep. Right.
So where do we go?
Okay. Thank you everyone for coming along. This is going to be a tutorial on using the GIMI conformance testing tool that I've prepared with the help. I've got Chuck listed, but also Gobi as well has very much been involved. And so these slides have been written as a deliverable out of the conforming test tool activity. And I'm going to proceed through them. In order to run the conformance test tool, you will need access to the OGC GitLab for the code sprint, so the relative SBED 21 repository. So if you haven't signed the user agreement or are not part of the test bed, then you won't automatically have access to that, just to be aware. So you'll see these slides have a yellow background and sort of blue text, and they're also actually images, each slide, and that's because I've created them using a tool called Mark that converts Markdown language into either a PDF or a PowerPoint. So in terms of providing updates and feedback, that means we can easily multiple people work on them. So we go through these slides assuming limited knowledge about both compliance testing and GIMI, and you will see where the blue text with an underline, then there are links to external web pages for further information. So there's I think 24 slides now, so I'm going to go through them fairly at speed, as we've only got half an hour for this session, and then very happy to open up to questions, and then the broader team can answer those. So we start off by defining what is conformance, and we link it back to the ISO standard and also what we will be referring to later, the abstract test suite, which is the testable assertions, and the executable test suite, if I get my tongue around these things, which is the implementation of the abstract test suite. And there's further information under the OGC ModSpec or compliance program if you want to understand more about conformance testing. So we're going to be focusing on GIMI. And you might already have attended this morning's tutorial on GIMI, so you're going to see some repetition from that. So GIMI is that we are focusing on from NGA, and this is built on a collection of existing industry standards, including MPEG and JPEG, and you will come across the terms ISO BMFF and HEAF, which it's very much linked to. And we have a diagram on the right that I borrowed from Juan, where he's described this all together. And what's important about GIMI, and you will see in the actual abstract test suite, is that it's made up a number of boxes, and those boxes can contain other boxes or data, but not both. And that data can be either imagery or sensor data, and that may be still imagery or video imagery. And at the minute we have something called the GIMI 1 standard. That is what we are testing through the abstract test suite. And we also have the imagery domain ontology that was also discussed in detail this morning, that allows us to have the supporting metadata that goes alongside the imagery or media component of the GIMI imagery. So in terms of the test suite itself, the executable test suite uses Team Engine and Compliance Warden. And what we're going to show you in the forthcoming slides is how actually you would run the test suite in a number of ways. And what's been happening behind the scenes, and I'll let Chuck answer any detailed questions on it, is he's been listening the GIMI format into a Java class model so that we can test all the elements of the format in terms of the conformance testing. And you will see that when you see the results out, coming out of the test suite. So when you pick the tester, you have control over what you're going to be testing, and you provide either the name or the URI of the file to be tested. And at the moment, you will see that what we're providing is a GIMI file, which allows us to perform both GIMI conformance testing, and also included in that is MPEG testing. So Team Engine is set up to run scripts written in the conformance test language. And that gives us a way of actually describing all the tests that need to be executed. And what's been happening in the testbed activity is that Chuck has been going through all the components of the GIMI standard and breaking them down into a very detailed set of tests. And when the tests are run, you don't only get whether the test has passed or failed, but you also get an explanation if it has failed as to why it has failed. And this really, the idea is that it will support developers and maintainers of software. And also by having this structure, we also support the maintenance of the executable test scripts themselves. So under the abstract test suite, which has been developed under NGA, are a series of categories that are really being tested. And you will see this as we go through the test procedure. So we have some mandatory metadata, and that is looked for. And that will be elements such as the content ID and the high precision timing information. And I've just spotted I've got a spelling mistake in there, so I'll have to fix that. And then
It's okay, we can't see it.
okay. and there is also will be, if the application is related to the security domain, there will be security information also within the file. And so the metadata really has to be able to capture a large range of input data sets. So this could be our standard sort of Earth observation data, but it could also be unmanned autonomous vehicles, it could be Internet of Things. So actually there's quite a diverse range of imagery or video information that could be stored within the GIMI files, and hence be subject to this testing. So we are going to run the ETS. So this is org.opengis.site.gimi1, and you will see that when we come to the command line. aspects of the testing. So if you're running the test suite through the GUI, and I will show you how to get to the GUI on later slides. And what I've been using so far is Docker for this, and that works very well. What you'll see on the right is you get, in the current version of the repository, you get the available test suites, and there will be a GIMI specification under there. And then when you select that, you will go into the Conformance test suite and you will be able to upload your GIMI file for testing. As GIMI has a lot of capabilities, as we've just highlighted, then you will notice that there are a lot of conformance test components. And those that are not relevant will be skipped. And so you can see in the output of the results a lot of skipped elements of the conformance testing. And this is not necessarily negative, because of the different imagery and video types that could be stored, then it's very likely that elements of the conformance testing will not be required and hence mandatory. And so having large elements being skipped is not unexpected for this particular conformance testing. And so, as you can see on the right, these are the outputs from a GIMI file that has passed. And you can see at the top highlighted in blue that it passed the core conformance testing. And then as you go down, and I very much shortened this as it's much longer, you can see the different elements that are being tested. And you can see under the GIMI 1 testing, we have, in this case, some elements have failed, some have passed, but there are also skipped elements as well. If we instead present a file that we expect to fail, so a non-GIMI file in this case, then you can see that now the core elements have failed, and then actually the further testing doesn't reveal anything, because this was a very simple example of a failed file. As well as the GUI output, we also have a command line interface. So you can now see here the actual repository that you would need to have access in order to run the conformance testing. So you would clone that repository, go in the repository. In that example, we're checking out March, but actually that's been updated since then. Yeah. And we're now on May, actually, or the main branch. You would then use Maven to clean and install it, creating your Java file, and then you can run the test suite through Java, and you provide it with a testing XML file that specifies what you're going to test. And so we have a configuration file that gives us the details of the test suite being executed, and the and this should be in, as defined in this particular example, the T-based folder. And then the other one is the configuration file that I was just mentioning to you, which is the XML file. And this will point us at that file that we uploaded for the GUI. So here we're providing a local file path, but you could also, if you were running it across the internet, provide an HTTP link for this. Again, there will be a series of outputs in great detail, and for the command line interface, the output is an XML report, which is telling you what has passed and failed. And so the way I've been actually running this and works very well is through Docker. And so in the case of Docker, you would again run the Maven command, but this time you would tell it to create a Docker image, and then you can execute that Docker image to create a container. And that will then give you access. And it's not actually specified in the GitLab repository where you then pick it up from, but you want the local host port 8081 and then Team Engine. If you don't put Team Engine, actually it doesn't give you what you want. So you've got to remember that bit. I will add that to the Ruby readme because that was something I noticed. And then your third approach is actually to run the jar file through an IDE of your choice. So it could be Eclipse, NetBeans, or IntelliJ, and in effect run a Java command line through one of those IDEs. So again, we've got the example on the right. And in this case, we provide, again, the instructions, and we will have a results file, which will be XML. But in this case, it will have a UUID value as its name. So as we just talked about, when I was showing you some of the earlier test results, we have two core conformance classes that in order to pass core conformance, you have to pass both those two classes, which is an initialization class and ISO BMF and Heath conformance class. The second of which is validated using compliance warding. And then in this case, we have 7 tests have passed, 10 have failed, and 10 have skipped. And so that was what I was mentioning before, in order that you may get quite a number of the tests being skipped. And as I said before, I'm only showing you a subset, but you have a choice, particularly when you're running it in the GUI form, to go and see the detail of what's been tested. And then as you progress down the file of the output, you will get lots of different elements being tested. So in this case, the audio has been skipped, Heath has been tested, metadata has been tested, and movie has been tested. And then at the very bottom of the GUI interface, you can actually download the full log file. So there we go. That was my quick run through. I don't know how long it took in the end.
No, it was perfect timing. Perfect timing.
I will now open to questions.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So are there any questions either from the room or from online? I think I saw a message online. Or that was earlier on, that was from the previous session. Any questions from the room?
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm a new member of OGC as developer. So what do I need to do in order to run this test or to play with? Because you were saying we need access to the GitLab. But for that, we need some agreement. So what?
So if you go into, are you able to go into Agora?
Yes.
Okay, we can. If you go into Agora right now,
We can. I have problem with my charger.
Okay.
Okay. So,
I'll show.
yes. Well,
show you then.
make sure in Agora you have to sign the observer agreement for the test bed.
Okay.
And yeah, so for
Is
test
this
between
anyone, or do you have to be an OGC member?
you have to be an OGC member.
How do
It's very easy. You have
You are. There we go.
can do it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
So,
did it.
yeah.
It's fully automated. You can do it.
And
in 15 minutes.
but there are multiple options for membership.
Yes.
So what I'd suggest is, let me connect you with one of my colleagues who's just here, Rosie, because
Yeah,
she
yeah.
knows all the different options. And then she can tell you what they are. And then once you're a member, what you basically do, and I'll just show you. I'll just
Do you want me to stop sharing?
yes, please, and I'll share my screen. Screen. So once once you're a member, you just go into Agora. You log in, you go in, and then in here, so where it says GitLab access, you should, or I have to log in, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so once you're in, you go into GitLab access. After a few seconds, it should bring up all the various GitLab report, groups of GitLab repositories. So you'll find testbed 21 in there, testbed 21. And then one of the options here will be join. Because I've already joined, it's showing me lead. So you just select the one that you want to join.
And it's that second one from the bottom.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's the one, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And then once you're in there, you can clone the repository and then follow the steps from the presentation. Okay.
So the GitLab is the standard or work group, and then repositories inside.
It is, yeah. So it's once you're in the landing page,
Yeah.
and then more GitLab access. And then it will, and then you just select. And you'll find other GitLab projects in there that you might be interested in. And
Thank you very much.
thank you. Okay, so any other questions? So we didn't get that. So what was that? Somebody online said something? Okay, maybe it was a hot mic. Okay, so are there any other questions? Okay, so I mean, what I can probably do just real quick is just to show you a demonstration of the user interface. Effectively, so I've got one running on Docker. If I haven't already shut it, it's still running. So you basically log in. You can create what do you call it, your own profile on there. Because it's running on Docker, it's local to your machine. You start a test session. You select a file that you want to test, and then you click start, and then it runs, and then it gives you the result. So it's very easy to use, and it provides useful information if you're implementing the GIMI standard. Okay, and I think that's it. I think we've covered everything. So thanks for your time. Thanks for briefing, and Sam, thanks for
They just
presenting.
Okay.
So I think we can bring the lightning talk to an end and move on to the next one.